Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the NBA front office show. Keith, I think I'm just going to call today's show "Why Can't We Have Nice Things?"
Uh, yeah.
We've got some news to go over today, and I guess we might as well just dive right in. Ja Morant out for the season due to shoulder surgery. That was Keith. That was one of those double take moments where I thought I was getting trolled by a fake account. When that tweet came out, I believe it was Shams Charania had it first. When
I
that
think
came
so.
out, I double checked to double check the at and everything. So I'm like, this can't be right. This is somebody's messing around. But no, and then I went and got the official notification from the Grizzlies saying, "Yep, he's out." And this is, I mean, huge blow for the Grizzlies, one of the brightest young stars in the NBA, and now he's lost for the season. And this essentially, to me, becomes a lost season for Memphis as well.
Yeah, I completely agreed on that second part on Morant. Sounds like from the Grizzlies release, he was injured in practice, injured the shoulder, and then upon further checks, it revealed he has a torn labrum. So he will be out and now for the rest of the season. They did say they expect him to make a full recovery and to be back for the start of next season. But yeah, Memphis is 13-23. They
Mm-hmm.
are 13th in the West. They are 4.5 games behind the Lakers for the final play-in spot, but they're also behind the Jazz and the Warriors. So they'd have to climb both the Jazz and the Warriors, plus Lakers, Suns, Rockets, any one of those teams if they fall out, just to get there. So 4.5 games plus climbing 3 teams. That's probably way too big of an ask for this team for
Without Ja.
without Ja and everything they've gone through this season. I just don't see it happening.
So I haven't looked, and I should just look, but maybe you know off the top of your head, is their draft pick encumbered at all this year? Because
It
that
is
obviously
not.
becomes a big thing.
Yeah, they've got their own pick this year. They no longer, they used to have, if you remember, they had that top 4 protected Warriors pick as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they traded that to Boston as part of a smart Porzingis, Tyus Jones 3-way trade. That one ended up going to Portland ultimately when Boston traded for Drew Holiday.
Mm-hmm.
But their pick's a little weird. They get the more favorable of Memphis and the less favorable of Phoenix and Washington 1-12. That was part of when Phoenix started splitting up every remaining
Right.
draft swap that they could, just so they could have something to trade. So Memphis very likely is going to have their
Their own
own
pick.
pick because they're not going to get they're not going to be better than both, or I guess worse than both Phoenix and Washington. So they'll have their own pick.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to kind of invert things when we're thinking
Yeah.
about draft picks here. And this is where, I mean, John Morant, I don't recall off the top of my head how many games he came back for. I would guess it was like what, 10 games, eight
I think they
games,
said
something.
9. I think
Nine. Okay,
was
so right
what
in
it
the middle
worked out
there.
to be. Yeah.
So he comes back for a few games here and then right back out. And I think this essentially, this, like you said, it ends any kind of playoff hope for Memphis for a little bit there. When he first came back, they came out of the gates, I mean, just on fire. And it looked like they were gonna make this push back up in the Western Conference. Now I think this takes all the wind out of their sails. And this is gonna be, they're gonna be part of now the race to the bottom. I don't know that they catch like
Yeah.
Portland in the tank race. They're already 3 wins up on Portland. So I think they probably wind up just staying right where they're at. I guess we could keep an eye on like the Atlanta Hawks over in the Eastern Conference. They've sit at 14 wins. Grizzlies are at 13 wins, and then you have the Toronto Raptors at 15 wins. But I have to think the Hawks and the Raptors they're not going to lose enough to fall below Memphis. So I think that Memphis probably finishes right where they are right now, and that's a pretty anticlimactic season for them.
Yeah, that would be the 6th pick. Right now it's Detroit, San Antonio, Washington, Charlotte, Portland, and then Memphis. So yeah, they're 2 games behind in the loss column on Portland. They're 3 games behind in the loss column on Charlotte. We've got Memphis has played 36 games. We've got teams that have played only 34 games. So it's kind of all over the place right now with that. But yeah, it's maybe it's just I think they've got too many good players, and I don't know that we're going to see them full on shut everybody down like today
Mhm.
and say no more Jaren Jackson, no more
Right.
Desmond Bane. But what I do think this means is, oh, Desmond Bane has a little tweak, you sit out. Oh, Jaren Jackson, your back's slightly bothering you, or you've got a
Yeah.
bruised quad, you sit out. You don't play. So we'll see what happens with that. And then do they look at some trades?
Mm.
Jackson and Bain, I've seen people like, well, maybe this means Team X can steal Jaren Jackson Jr.
No.
Why? That wouldn't make sense. You've got him long term and he's still young. You're clearly, if you're Memphis, what your silver lining here is, let's go get a good draft pick. Let's really nail this draft pick and hope this is the last high pick we have for several years, because we'll add this guy to Morant, Bain, and Jackson, and off we go. And that's our push moving forward. So
Mhm.
so we'll see what happens with that part of it. But maybe Marcus Smart could be traded. I think there were some
Potentially.
signs that the idea of him being the Dylan Brooks replacement wasn't going to be super workable. Now, though, they kind of need him because you want to have something at point guard. So it's just very, very messy in Memphis.
I think one other silver lining for this is with Brandon Clark. It makes his return from injury much more low stress
Yes.
because they can really go at whatever pace they want. There is
Yep.
no rush to get him back and up to speed now. Not to say that they would have rushed him necessarily anyway, but like if they're as he's returning, which I think he's supposed to return sometime after the All-Star break. Am I right on that?
Yeah, in that range. Yeah, I
It's
know
somewhere around there.
that's what they've talked about. Yeah.
But if they're in the midst of like this big, crazy playoff push, there's that added pressure for him to get right and get right quickly so he can be a contributor for them. And now that's all gone. Now he can
Mhm.
recover at his own pace and bring him along slowly. And then hopefully he's at 100%. You look at this Grizzlies team for next year, you could wind up, as frustrating as this is right now, for next year, you could wind up healthy Brandon Clark, healthy Steven Adams, healthy Ja Morant, plus a high draft pick all being added to this group. This could look very, very different for Memphis in just one season. It's just unfortunate for right now.
Yeah, big time. And I think Grizzlies fans are smart enough to get, hey, we're going to take whatever comes the rest of this season, and it is what it is. And hopefully they know, let's not go make a short-sighted trade where we kind of go all in and try to really make a push anyway without Morant. That just wouldn't make sense. So yeah, give it the next month before the trade deadline, see what it all looks like. And then if you want to move some guys and trades and those kind of things that maybe aren't part of the more short and longer ish term future, then you can do that. If that means Marcus Smart was moved, or let's say there was a trade that came up that was just really great value using Steven Adams' contract or something like that. You think you look at that, but the core of Morant, Bain, and Jackson, none of those guys are going anywhere, and you just play it out from here.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you do. It's all you can do right now
Mm-hmm.
if you're Memphis. All right. It doesn't stop with Ja Morant. Tyrese Haliburton injures his hamstring. I didn't see the injury live. I'm assuming you were watching.
I
What
was.
happened?
So he's driving the ball in the beginning part of the third quarter, I think, or was it late in the second quarter? I think it was actually late in the second quarter. Now that I think about it, he was driving and he basically went to do almost like a jump stop, and his right leg went out about as far as it could while his left leg stayed planted.
Mm.
And he did the splits about as deep as you could possibly do them without being a trained professional dancer. I think is how I would put it. And he went down, and you knew it was bad right away. He rolled over. The good thing, if there's a good thing here, was he immediately went for the hamstring. Like he was not going for the knee, wasn't any part of that. So he was really went right for his left hamstring. And he did try to stand up, and you could see it was almost like, I'm going to stand up and try to walk it off. It immediately went right
Mm.
back down when he took one step on that left leg, and down he went. And that was it. He had to be carried off. They put the towel over his head. I was really afraid. Do you remember a few years back when Chris Middleton tore the hamstring off the bone? That's
Oh
what
yeah.
this kind of looked like,
Ooh.
was what we had seen from that. And That was really scary when that happened because you knew instantly like he's done for months now. And I was afraid that might have been what happened here, but they're calling it a strain now. He had an MRI. I think they said it's a grade 1 strain, which means he's I think they said 7 to 10 days. They'll relook at him or so. Maybe it was 2 weeks or something like that. So we'll see. Hopefully he can get back and be back for the All-Star game since it is in Indianapolis. Always like seeing the home fans there get their player in the game. So hopefully he's able to go by then. But definitely a scary situation, but could have been way, way worse the way it looked.
Yes, yeah, especially with just the reaction on social media. It sounded like he's done, and
Yeah.
so the fact that he is going to be back, that's big. Unfortunately, that's not the only injury that we keep this show. Again, the why can't we have nice things? Cade Cunningham is now out a few games as well. I mean, Detroit obviously in a very different position where they're not, they can definitely let him recover slowly. But now Cade Cunningham missing a few games too. It's I don't know. This is coming in waves. The injuries that are hitting the league right now.
Yeah, and injuries to good young players,
Exactly.
right? Morant, Haliburton, Cunningham. These are three of the young, bright stars of the game. And Cade Cunningham, despite the Pistons really still struggling, he's been playing really, really well. And he's been playing well in some weird lineup combinations and lineups that don't give him a lot to work with. And he still is really, he is starting to, what he kind of reminds me of right now, it's like the super idealized version of Evan Turner, what he was supposed to be, because he's
Mhm.
not a great outside shooter, but he gets to his spots with ease and just goes up and over guys. He's because he's so big, he can really gets good lift on his jump shot. He's really knocking them down. And this was another knee injury where I only saw the replays of this. I didn't see what happened live, but it looked like it might have been worse too, just kind of the way it happened. So again, thankfully, this is not all that bad, and we're going to see this now into a spot where they're saying that he was the one who was 7 to 10 days. So yeah, at least a few games for Cade Cunningham, maybe a little bit more. We'll see, but that's at least to some extent good news in what's been an absolutely miserable season for the Pistons.
Yeah, yeah, it's been certainly rough. But again, that's the silver lining. Both Halliburton and Cade Cunningham injuries that looked worse, and then wound up being not quite as bad as they could have been, but still injuries to players nonetheless. All right, let's get into a
We could
couple
have
of
just played a funeral dirge like as the
right.
background music for the start to the show because it was not fun.
No, like just the Undertaker's theme music or something
Yeah,
to
right?
start things
Yeah.
out.
Or that what
Yeah.
is that one? It's always, like, on, like, the Looney Tunes, like, the dun, dun, dun,
Dun,
dun,
dun, dun,
dun,
dun,
dun,
dun,
dun.
dun, dun. Yep, yep, yep.
We sing on this show now, that's what
There
we
you
do.
go.
Singing and
That's what we do.
accents and everything else.
There we go. This is a full experience. It's an
Yeah.
immersive experience. You're getting a little bit of entertainment in addition to sports news. It's all kinds. We aim to please our fans. That's for sure.
A little bit.
Little, very, very little bit. We are never doing a musical episode.
No,
Never.
probably not. Episode, 4,832.
Sure. There you go.
That will be our musical episode.
There
Somebody
you
mark
go.
that down and keep us honest.
Skylar Mays signs with the Lakers. Keith, I already talked about this quite a bit for Lakers Nation, but essentially, the way I see this is adding Skylar Mays, who actually had a couple of really good games against the Lakers, which is surprising how that goes. You see a player that plays well, and you go, "Oh, we want that guy."
The
But I
Doc
think this,
Rivers approach.
yeah, exactly. I think this means more for Jalen Hood-Schifino than anything else. I don't expect Skylar Mays to get a lot of minutes. I think Jalen Hood-Schifino was the break glass in case of emergency point guard, and the Lakers weren't using him as that because he wasn't ready. So they said, okay, let's send him down to the G League, get him more minutes with South Bay, and we'll bring in this guy, and he can be our break glass in case of emergency point guard on a two-way contract.
Yeah, I hadn't really given that a lot of thought, but I think that is a good read on it. I think that makes a lot of sense to consider it that way. I know Hood Shafino, was it last night he played or a couple nights ago he played his first game with South Bay, and he actually played pretty well. He had 20 points and 7 assists. I remember checking that out. I know it was recent that he went down there and played, but
Yeah,
he just
just
needs
last night.
game reps. Yeah, he
Mhm.
just needs game reps. So that's the big thing for him. So, and to your point, the Lakers needed to keep him on the active roster because they were going into a lot of these games with 10, 11 guys. So you needed a body in case there were foul troubles or another injury or something, especially in the backcourt. So Mays can definitely do that. Mays is probably a guy who, let's say he plays well, and let's say there is a trade that involves a guard leaving town, he could be a conversion candidate by the end of the
Mhm.
year. He's somebody who's pretty highly thought of by NBA teams as far as he continues to get chances, whether it be on two ways or he was with Portland earlier this season. So I like it. It's a no cost pickup. I saw some people really frustrated about Demoy Hodge being waived.
Yeah.
My thing is, if the Lakers, there's only one of two ways this goes, right? Either the Lakers are ignorant and dumb, and I don't think that's the case, or the Lakers know, hey, even though we're shooting deprived and we've needed guards, he's not the answer. Like he
Mhm.
just wasn't ready to play. So to me, that's I tend to trust the team's evaluation on those things. And do they miss sometimes? Sure, sometimes they miss,
Yeah.
but more often than not, when you cut loose a two-way guy, it's pretty rare that two-way guy comes back to you like, oh no, see what a huge mistake we made. That doesn't usually go that way.
There's a couple of things at play there with Demoy Hodge. Number one, he was pretty good in summer league, and so people
Mm-hmm.
remember that, and
Yep.
summer league doesn't always translate, so that's part of it.
Yeah.
But it's also that, and he himself has said, in fact, literally told me this. He at summer league, he is trying to be Kentavious Caldwell Pope.
Yep.
Like he even physically kind of looks like Kentavious Caldwell
He
Pope. Like
does
he is
actually. Yeah.
Demoy Hodge. That is the game that he is trying to fashion, and Lakers fans feel a certain kind of way about Kentavious Caldwell Pope no longer being on the roster. So there's that added frustration of, oh my gosh, he's being let go again. There's that is the little added salt in the wound there.
It's so funny that when you and I first started podcasting regularly, when I would come and guest with you
Uh-huh.
on the Lakers Nation show, Lakers fans did not feel that way about Kentavious Caldwell Pope at
No,
all. They were ready to call the moving company and drive him to the airport themselves. And the whole conversation was, why did we give him this stupid contract where he has control and can say no to all these,
the
to no to
trade
trades and everything else and all that stuff. So it is kind of funny how that turned, but big part of helping them win, right? So that's why,
for sure.
flags fly forever. You become beloved when you do that. And Kentavious Caldwell Pope is also a very good basketball player who,
Mm-hmm.
quite frankly, he's, for my money, he's as much the glue for the Nuggets in their run. You've got your stars, but Caldwell Pope is a huge part of what they do in Denver. He's just because he's so good defensively. His ability to cover point guards keys their defense because Jamal Murray, for everything he's good at, that's just not something he does very well. So with that, but yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. I think the Lakers are fine with the two-way moves they made. We talked about Dylan Windler the other
Yep.
day. We'll see if anything comes of that. But yes, Scarlett May is a good pickup. Jason Preston to the Jazz. Kind of like this one. Josh Christopher had not really kind of set the G League on fire or anything. He didn't look great. The Jazz waived him. They pick up Jason Preston, who was playing pretty well in the G League. I put him on my column from Spot Track of guys to look at for a 10-day or a two-way call-up. 12.4 points per game, 7.8 rebounds for a 6'3" point guard that's pretty good, and 8.5 assists for Jason Preston. So Jason Preston's a guy, if he could shoot consistently, he'd already be on an NBA roster and probably playing 15, 20 minutes a night as a backup point guard. He just doesn't shoot the ball consistently enough for that role, but the Jazz are going to get him. And again, the Jazz, another team, a lot of guards that have been mentioned in trade talks. Maybe something opens up here. He gets more minutes and he can become something. So this is a good way to kind of let's get him in the fold now versus competing with teams later if we feel like we have some interest. So Jason Preston's a guy shot up draft boards late his draft year coming in, and teams kind of like them, had some injuries, missed his whole first year with the Clippers. So we'll see if anything pops out of this.
So why not for Utah,
Yeah.
basically?
And Jason Preston, former blogger for Piston Power. That
Oh,
was the
that's
story that came
right.
out. Yeah.
That was him.
Yeah. And which is funny, he's also an Orlando kid. So I've seen him play in person here a few times too, back when he was much younger before he went to Ohio. So yeah, just fun story there. So yeah, I'm rooting for him. I hope he does well.
All right, Dennis Schroder, not super thrilled with his role off the bench with the Raptors. In Lakers land, we wondered how much of a factor was starting in Toronto to Dennis Schroeder's decision making in terms of going to Toronto versus I don't know for sure. I've asked around, I've gotten a few different answers on exactly what the situation was. Did the Lakers want to offer Dennis Schroeder like the Gabe Vincent contract or not? But it appears that starting is something that indeed mattered to Dennis Schroeder because now he's not super, even though he's been productive for the Raptors coming off the bench. This has been a thing with him for years, though. When he first came to the Lakers back in 2021, starting was something that was very important to him. Well, 2020, 2021 season, starting was something that was really important to him. I think he thought that opportunity was going to continue to exist with the Raptors. Obviously, that's gone with Emmanuel Quickly now in town.
Yeah, without a doubt. Quickly is their long-term answer at the point guard spot. They're also run a ton of the offense through both Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam for at least maybe another month. We'll see what that looks like there. But yeah, it's this came from Michael Grange of Sportsnet. He's all over a lot of Raptor stuff. And it says Dennis Schroeder was not happy with the decision to bring him off the bench. It says in his report, Schroeder signed with the Raptors with the idea of running his own team after coming off the bench with the Lakers and Celtics in previous seasons. Darko Rajakovic, the Raptors coach, says Dennis brings a lot of energy to everything we do. He's trying to play the right way on the offensive end. He's very disruptive. On the other end, his mentality is forced, something that really rubs off on our guys very well. And then Grange adds to close out this little section. Schroeder is willing to make the role change work here, but clearly Quickly is there now. He is the long-term answer. You can't play the two of them together as far as a regular starting backcourt. So it makes me wonder, Dennis Schroeder probably more available now than he was a week or so ago when they didn't have Emmanuel Quickly. And we'll see what that looks like trade-wise.
Yeah. Yeah. I do wonder if that puts Dennis Schroeder on the market. By the way, Q Lakers fans chiming in the comments. We'll trade for Dennis Schroeder.
I'm
They want him back. They want him back. Okay, let's get over to this. Our last topic for the day. The Wizards are waiving Ryan Hollins and signing Hamidou Diallo. What do you think about that move? What's behind that aside from just wanting to get a look at Hamidou Diallo?
Yeah, I think Ryan Rollins is a guy who, between injuries and just hasn't been able to crack the rotation in Washington. Washington, they, despite being a really bad team, they've had actually really good health, especially with their starting group. They have very rarely had guys miss out of their starting lineup. I bet
I wrote Ryan Hollins.
Oh, you did, yeah. Well, he's
Wrong guy.
broadcasting Rockets games,
yeah.
now, think, right?
I was not even thinking, and I guess good. That's just muscle memory there. I typed it right. I'll fix that.
Good. So anyway, I think with Ryan Rollins, the thing is, what happens there is what I was going to in Washington. I haven't looked, and I should look this up. I bet if you looked at the lineup stats, they've had one of the more consistent starting lineups. One of the things I do is I update depth charts every single day. It's one of the first tasks I do every morning is I go through as I'm watching games, and then I go through the box scores and I update the depth charts for who starts, when guys come in. And that's part of how I'm able to keep track of, that guy actually fell out of the rotation like 2 weeks ago. And I make little notes on each player. I have a whole process. It's probably madness and only makes sense to me. But in Washington, their starting group has been together for the most part all season long. And then their backups, again, even though a bad team, been generally pretty healthy too. So Rollins hasn't been able to break through. Washington eats 1.7 million this year. It's fine. They're a mile from the tax line. And then they eat 600K next year. That was his guarantee on Rollins. Now they're going to bring in Hamidou Diallo. He had been playing for the Capital City Go-Go, which is Washington's G League affiliate, playing well down there. He's scoring well. He's not shooting very well, but scoring. He's rebounding. He's passing. He's really called out at the showcase by several people to me as one of the G League's better perimeter defenders. Washington definitely can use anybody who play perimeter defense. So they're going to bring him in on a 10-day. This is probably the start of we're going to turn the bottom of the roster in Washington and just keep bringing guys through. What does it look like? What does it look like? Can somebody pop, find a spot? And if they can, great, we'll move forward with them as part of this rebuild. As an aside on the Wizards, I had someone tell me just this morning they expect them to be very active at the trade deadline. They think Washington is pretty much open for business on just about anybody on the roster outside of Bilal Coulibaly and probably Denny Avdia just because they just re-signed him. But just about anybody else, they're willing to discuss and talk, and they'll see. But they think Washington is, they know this is like part way through year one of what is a multi-year tear down, reset,
Right.
rebuild, and move forward. So they're just trying to collect young players and draft picks for whatever they can do. So definitely going to have an eye on Washington over the next month.
Yeah, this will be a team to watch as we get towards that trade deadline for sure. Keith, maybe it's just because of all the somber news on this show, but we were pretty efficient. We were pretty
We
efficient
were.
here in this one.
Yeah, well, I've also watching this storm come through and
That's
powers
right.
flickering and everything else. So we packed this in. We'll get back to more nonsense. We sang a little bit, so
We did a little bit.
that's something people can enjoy that. But yeah,
That's right.
yeah, anybody who's in the path of this storm, like get serious, get your supplies and everything because this looks like it's going to be a doozy. We're already seeing the impacts from it here in Florida where I am, and there's like 100,000 people without power
Mm.
across the state right now. So let's hope we don't join that group, but we'll see. The worst is just rolling in here later this afternoon.
Well, Keith, hopefully you guys stay safe and everything works out just fine for you guys there. And it doesn't end up being as bad as people are thinking it will be. But man, I hope hopefully we have a show tomorrow. We'll
Yeah,
find out.
let's hope, and hopefully there's no more major injuries to talk about. We can just have a little
Yes.
fun.
Yes, absolutely. We need more nonsense on this
Yeah,
show
and trade rumors. Let's go. What
for
are we
sure.
doing? Month out. Come on now, pick up.
Yeah, come on. All right, everybody, make sure you do subscribe to the NBA Front Office Show here on YouTube. Don't forget to turn on those notifications as well. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.